Good morning. Good morning to you on this beautiful, beautiful, lovely day. It's good to be back with you. It is certainly another beautiful day that the Lord has made. He told us to rejoice and be glad in it. We got a lot going on. We got some good things going on as well as the negative things. But we want the positive to always overshadow the negative.
Yes.
And on Monday, we have with us Miss Kenya Walker, who is a licensed professional counselor. Good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
We're doing well.
Great.
Did you have a good weekend?
I did. I got a lot done, and you know what? I got plenty of rest.
Wonderful.
What about yours?
It was good. I had a lot going on too. Busy. Had a funeral Saturday, a baby shower.
Oh wow, it was eventful.
Eventful.
Yeah.
But I had time to get some things done. Sure did.
Mm-hmm.
I am grateful, elated just to be able to get some things done.
Oh yes.
Don't you know?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It gives you a sense of accomplishment.
It does.
And it makes you feel like you are accomplishing some of these goals that you set out. It's a wonderful feeling. And do you know, when you accomplish those goals, it reduces your anxiety. It helps to keep that anxiety under control so that you don't feel overwhelmed.
Right. And you have a sense of peace that things are in place.
Yes, ma'am.
Because when you got a lot going on and things are not where they should be, you have that anxiety or that lack of peace that you desire to have.
Yes, ma'am. Because each day that comes and your work goes undone, there's more that you have to catch up on. And I know I got a lot of office work and paperwork done this past weekend, and I felt my anxiety just disintegrate.
Right. Because when you have things that are not complete, you have it in the back of your mind, and that's occupied space that you could be using for something else.
That's right. Using to create some other things. You know?
You are so right. You're so right. So it's good to have things in order and get that clutter and have that structure, get some things out. Sometimes we can have too many things, even in our home, that
That's
we
right.
need to just give away. We don't have to even think about it.
Exactly. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking if I could clean out these closets, because I'm getting ready to move really soon. And so if I could just clean out these closets and throw most of this junk away, I would never have to deal with it again. You know, a lot of it I'm not wearing, a lot of those clothing items, and I have a lot of little knickknacks around the house that I don't even use. So I'm just going to give that stuff away and just be rid of it.
I read a book about less is more. The less you have to deal with, the less you have to work or even stress about.
That's right. That's right.
All right, let me grab this call right here. We got some things we're going to talk about today. Let me grab this call. Good morning, caller.
Off and claim it at the end of the year, and there are people would love to have your stuff, and God will give you great blessing, and you look brick and brack and whatever else, take that too. Be blessed, you all. Be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Miss Brown. I'm sure you're going to give it to someone that would appreciate it.
I am. Yes, ma'am. I know several people I want to give them to.
Yeah, because, people love good clothing and good things that they can have access to.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so Ms. Brown, she's not going to just throw them away. She's not going to put them in the garbage can.
No.
I think that's being wasteful.
Yes, ma'am, it is. I'll probably give it to the Goodwill, or I have know some people in the community that I would like to bless with those clothing items.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that's what I'm going to do.
You know, you got a lot of shelters too sometimes in different places that could use certain things.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Candy. My friend Candy is watching, looking. We welcome your comments on Facebook, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. So if you desire to post a comment or ask a question, you can post it on Facebook or give us a call at 662-328-1052 or 662-328-9227. And on last time we were here, well, we have another caller. We were going to talk about the different learning styles and certain things that happen in a person's life. Sometimes can clog maybe their learning or whatever. Good morning, caller.
Oh, man, one more time. Some people you give your clothes so they don't want you to give your clothes to them. They don't want to wear them. These places here you give them to, they don't know who clothes they are. They wear them with pride. But do your thinking and everything. But everybody don't like for you to give them their clothes and stuff. But be blessed.
All right, Miss Brown. All right. You have to just be discerning of who you think would be appreciative.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, we stopped off. What was the question on last week? We said that we wanted to start off with.
We started talking about learning disabilities, mainly intellectual and physical disabilities that children can often suffer from and endure. You know, and we were explaining mental retardation and how that term has now changed to intellectual disability.
Mm-hmm.
Because for so long, MR or mental retardation, that particular terminology had such a negative connotation.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we changed that terminology, we started to see people as people, we started the disease or the disorder, and we started seeing the person who is experiencing particular intellectual disability.
So do you think that makes a person feel inferior when they have a learning disability?
Yes, ma'am, I do believe so. And it can affect their self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So how would this cause a person also maybe to have bad behavior or do things that are not conducive to a person that is learning well?
Mm-hmm. And we see this often in classrooms with children. When a child has a learning disability or he is having a hard time grasping the information that the teacher is giving him, he will often manifest behaviors, problematic behaviors, to sort of disrupt that process because of the embarrassment. He doesn't want his peers and a lot of time his teachers to know that he is having issues with learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes they will misbehave and they send them to the principal's office. But what's happening is when the children are dismissed from the classroom, and that means the child has escaped that unpleasant experience. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we've learned that these behaviors in the classrooms are simply because the child does not want to admit that he cannot grasp that information. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times if we can talk to a child, have a one-on-one session with him, or just speak to him for a few minutes, let's say, okay, are you having any problems? I noticed that around 3 o'clock every evening, let's say 2 o'clock every evening, mm-hmm. I noticed these disruptive behaviors that you display. And what we're doing at 2 o'clock, for instance, may be mathematics. Mm-hmm. Are you having issues learning mathematics? And that's when you learn that he is. Because he's not showing any of these behaviors throughout the day when the teacher is giving him instruction with other subjects. But it's that particular time of the day because he's having issues learning the information. And so what we have to do is take the time to talk with the child. If he needs extra help, maybe we can set aside some time to give him some one-on-one help or some tutoring. Mm-hmm. And also talking to the parents so the parents can reinforce what the teacher is teaching during the day at school.
So, could that be based on listening? Do you think sometimes a child might not be listening well?
Sometimes.
The reason they're not grasping the concept?
Sometimes. But because you have different learning styles, and that style, the style of learning varies from person to person, he may be listening, but it may be that he cannot logically understand that information. In math, it's just complete logic, understanding how numbers work. And so if he doesn't understand the logic of mathematics, he may disrupt the teaching process so that no one will know that he is, struggling in that area.
So you said that there's a label, not a label, but a concept used for people that have a disability in math, learning math.
You have different types of math learning disabilities. There's disabilities for reading, and there's also disabilities that are pertaining to language development as well. And we tend to see these more in the pervasive developmental disorders, such as, let's say, autism. Autism is a pervasive developmental disorder where a child may have issues with communication, issues connecting with other people, making eye contact. And the child may also have obsessive tendencies, such as OCD, where they engage in these obsessive thoughts and repetitive behaviors to satisfy the anxiety that's connected to those thoughts, which that can be treated through cognitive therapy and behavioral therapy, mainly applied behavior analysis, and as far as dealing with the social skills aspect of it and dealing with the emotional aspect of having autism.
I think when it comes to math, sometimes individuals might have these mindsets, I can't do it, because sometimes you said deal basically with logic, but you have to have a good math teacher.
You do.
And a good math teacher, if they are not equipped to really explain it well or give simple examples, sometimes the child, doesn't get it.
That's right. You have to be able to provide that instruction so that child can learn it, and also be aware of the different learning styles of the children in your classroom, because he may learn differently. That does not mean he cannot learn and he's less intelligent than the other children are. It may be that he learns differently. So once we understand what his learning style is, then we can adapt the teaching methods accordingly to help him grasp that information.
And we discussed that on last week about an individual that was dyslexic, that he was not being taught right, and because of that, he was kind of pushed to the side. When you actually discovered, or they actually discovered, he had an IQ, I believe you said, of 169?
160.
And that's genius level.
And how they found that out, he was given a comprehensive adaptive test and an intellectual quotient assessment, and that's how they found out how intelligent he was.
Wow.
And turns out, for years, he was underserved in the school district because of his dyslexia diagnosis. No one adapted their teaching methods to help him learn the information, because he's very intelligent. As I was saying last week, he's in upper management and doing very well in his career right now.
Think about all the gifts and the talents that we are missing out on because this was not discovered in individuals, and they were kind of put on the back burner, saying that they couldn't learn, and they felt maybe that they did have this disability, when all of the thing was that they need the right teaching style.
That's right.
The right teaching style. So I'm glad they're discovering that more and more, because some probably are in prison because of that.
Yes, ma'am. I was reading an article. I'm glad you mentioned it. I was reading an article some months back, and it was saying that they build the number of prisons or the cells per prison depending on children who can't read by the time they are in the third grade. In other words, if they're not on a third grade reading level by the time they're in the third grade, and they said at most the fifth grade, they build prisons because they know the child's life, if his educational needs aren't met, his life is going to take a turn to where he may do some things later on just for survival that may lead to incarceration. And I just couldn't believe it when I read it. I read that article about 3 times before I really understood what they were meaning and felt that it was even accurate information. It was kind of amazing. So if this, why don't we take that money and pool it into our educational system to help children who are at risk, who may be falling through the cracks educationally, instead of planning for their doom and incarceration later.
Right. And you know, that's the way society operates. We are reactive rather than proactive. We
Yes,
wait
ma'am.
until something happens. You know, even if a person is being stalked or they call the police or whatever, they might say, we can't do nothing until something actually happened. That's crazy.
It is. What about preventative measures?
Right. We need those measures in place. We can stop a lot of things.
That's right. And it's up to us as a community to help children. You know, although most of the teaching starts at home, but we've got to help our parents make sure that our children are educated.
And that the parents are equipped to deal with the children, because a lot of times now you got young parents and they were not maybe parent. They might have came from a single parent home. Not saying that that's a detriment, but parents need help.
Yes.
They need that male figure also. It's enough.
Yes.
Just trying to raise a child.
Yes.
You got a lot of distractions and things that will try to lure the parent off course and the child off course.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And therefore it goes back to the old proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. It's our responsibility as a community to make sure children who are at risk educationally, we need to make sure that they are served and given the best educational experience that they can receive.
True. Knowledge is power. Even the word of God says in Hosea 4:6, my people perish because of
The
knowledge.
lack of knowledge.
The lack of knowledge. Education gives you options that you won't have to be stuck in a box or dependent upon others.
It's true. It's true. Now, I know there are different learning styles, and here are some of those different learning styles. Some people are visual learners, meaning that they learn by what they see. We have auditory, which tend to be more musical hearing learners. Verbal, they learn by linguistics, the spoken word and the semantics or the semantical meaning of words. Also, we have doers or physical learners, which, you know, is a kinesthetic learner who learns by movement. We also have the more logical learner, which we mentioned earlier. These tend to be individuals who are really great at math and science. And we have social interpersonal learners, people who learn through their social interactions with others. And then we have people who learn in solitude, who learn better by being alone so that they can think and have a thought that's uninterrupted. Yes,
Wow.
ma'am.
Let's go with those once again.
Okay, the first type of learning style is a visual learning style.
Seeing.
Seeing. These are spatial seeing learners. The second learning style is auditory. These are individuals who learn by hearing. They tend to be more artistic and musical. Verbal learners. They learn according to linguistics or the spoken word, or they learn by semantical meanings of words. Physical learners are kinesthetic learners, meaning they learn by doing. They have to be moving in order to learn. Logical learners. These individuals tend to be very good at mathematics and science, anything where they can apply logic. Social learners. They learn through social interactions with other people. And solitary learners. They learn by thinking about everything that they perceive. And that's through what they hear, what they see. You know, they are more sensory learners because they think about what they perceive.
So what category do you think you will fall in?
Me, I am more of a visual learner.
Okay.
I'm a visual learner. I'm also a verbal learner. And I'm very when it comes to my learning, I like solitude.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I applied three of these apply to me: the visual, the verbal, and the solitary learner.
And I believe mine also probably would include that, and also social interaction. I could add that to mine. I learned to, too, by just being around other people and engaging with them as well. So, would you say one supersede the other, or they're just all? Because sometimes people think if you're mathematically inclined, you're so smart and all of that.
I don't think any one learning style is better than the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I say this because everybody has a unique gift.
Mm-hmm.
And we all can't have the same gift. So if we all can't have the same gift, then we can't have the same learning style.
Mm-hmm.
Because, see, our gifts have to be grown, they have to be nurtured, and so in order to have some variety, we have to have these different learning styles.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I believe.
Mm-hmm. So even with this, how important it is to really listen. Sometimes we're hearing, but we're not listening.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not conceiving what's going on in the atmosphere, we're really not listening. How important it is just to listen well.
It's very important to listen, because you can learn a lot just by what you hear. I have learned a lot of things over the past years based on what I hear others say. I listen to what people tell me. It's very important. Because, see, if we're speaking more than we're listening, we're not able to receive new information.
Right, that's good.
So we have to be slow to speak, and we have to listen quickly.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. Because sometimes an individual think they can just give out all the knowledge, and the other not giving the other party a chance to say anything. I don't like to be in those types of conversations.
Neither do I.
That the person does all the talking.
All the talking. Yes, ma'am.
Let me get a word in edgewise. Let me express myself some.
Exactly.
So hearing and discerning, sometimes we got to discern in our mind and in our heart, because sometimes people can be saying things that they really don't mean. Sometimes people can act like they're happy and they're not really happy.
Yes, ma'am. And my sense of discernment, I learned a long time ago. I hear what people say, and I do this constantly. I don't know if this is because of my clinical training, but I really believe I've always been like this naturally. At least my mom says I've been like this since I was a baby. I hear what people say, but I don't pay so much attention to what they say, but I read facial expressions and body language very well. I've always cued in on that extremely keenly.
And we really need that sense of discernment. And whether we are looking, whether we are hearing, we need that keen sense of discernment. And it takes time to train your spirit for that keen sense of discernment, because a lot of times we allow things to go undone or unchecked, or not getting to the root of issues. Sometimes we're not really listening well.
That's right. That's right. If we hear what people say, we can listen to the words that they say, but we need to be able to read between the lines. Listen to the tone of voice. Listen to the pitch of the voice, the inclination in the voice. Listen to the rises and the falls. Listen to the sound of their breathing. Watch their posture. Watch their facial expression in their eyes, because it will tell you a lot. Because the way they feel may be totally opposite from what they actually say.
That's true. Now, Miss Brown called in with a question on last week. The thought was she knew a lady. Her husband was actually cheating on her, but he took care of home and the children. And she said that she didn't want anybody to tell her anything about her husband. And my question to the audience was, would you want to know what he was doing? Would you want to know?
Would I want to know?
Right. Would you really want to know?
Yes, I would. But I need the Lord to reveal that to me. He needs to show it God forbid, Lord forbid. You know, but you would want the Lord to reveal something like that to you. Because you have to be careful who you let speak to you about your spouse or the one that God has ordained to be your spouse.
But what you said, I don't want to know. That was my initial thought.
I wouldn't necessarily tell them that, to be honest with you. I would not tell them that. I would listen to it. I would file it in the back of my mind. Put it in that folder in the back of my mind. But I wouldn't act on it.
Till you get evidence.
Till you get evidence. Because it may not be true. And you don't want to accuse anyone of something they're not doing.
So you really need to find out. Even if you don't want anybody to tell you, you got investigators. You can try to see you can see for yourself.
Yes.
The thought behind what I was saying, I would want to know, because you got a lot of individuals that are living double lives.
Yes.
And they could con you really good and also kill you. You got some that have taken their spouses out and buried them. This man that killed the spouse and the children. If you don't know that stuff, what's going on behind your back, it could potentially harm you.
It could.
That's why I said I would want to know.
You would want to know.
What's going on behind my back. Especially if you're in a relationship with someone that's supposed to love you.
Yeah. But do you know, I believe if an individual is that psychopathic in nature, the signs are always there. It's just that we ignore those signs.
But now sometimes you can have some people that are really naive, that they're so caught up in what they're doing that sometimes it takes a long time for them to wake up.
Yeah, it does. And that's because their discernment is not where it should be. And a lot of times, depending on the situation you're in, you will ignore some things to make sure that your other needs are met. And that's dangerous. The signs are there, because no one is that great of an actor where something in their character never shows up to indicate that they are psychopathic in nature, that they are dangerous, or they don't have your best interests at heart. Because once you really learn a person, you learn how you start learning how they think. You start learning about how they feel about things. You start learning their behavior. And we all have a pattern of behavior that comes from a pattern of thought. And if there's any interruption in those patterns, it's going to send off a red flag.
But to say I don't want to know, I don't think that's a good thing.
It's not completely. It's just that you have to be careful who you're getting the information from. What is the motive behind that? What is the motive behind the person coming to report that information to you?
What is it? What if it is a trusted relative that you know that has your best interest in mind? Would you tell them? I really don't want to know.
Because if I know this has my best interest at heart, and I know we have had that type of relationship forever,
That's what I'm talking about.
I wouldn't tell them that. I would receive the information and wait and see if that information that they've given me is confirmed.
Well, sooner or later,
that's what I would do.
Yeah, sooner or later, it will come out.
Yes, ma'am. If it's the truth, it will come out.
It will come out sooner or later. Sometimes it might be years. But Miss Robert indicated also when that's going on, sometimes you can pick up sexual diseases. You know, especially if the person is sleeping with a third party.
You sure can.
Anything could happen. That's not a good situation.
It's not.
That's why the Bible say, let every man have his own wife.
Yes, and every woman her own husband.
Her own husband. All right, let me grab this call and see what we got going on here.
All right.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Is this Miss Earnestine?
This is she. Okay. Hold on just a minute. Let me take this call off the air, okay? Hold on. All right, Miss Walker. You carry on until I get back.
Yes, ma'am. But as we were saying, we have to be careful about who we receive our information from. We have to make sure this person has our best interest at heart. And we need to understand human behavior. Once you learn your partner and you learn their character and you know how they think and how they feel, once you understand their patterns, it can help you discern some things if there are some changes in their patterns of behavior. But if you have a strong sense of discernment and you feel that something is going on that may threaten your marriage or your relationship or your union, then have a talk with them. You will have to have a face-to-face talk to get an understanding about what may or may not be going on. So it's important that we connect with people in order to learn who they are, learn about their characters. And that will give you an indication, basically, about what they are capable of doing and what they're not possibly capable of doing. And you know, we're all human and we make mistakes and we are capable of doing many, many things. But understand that the only way you can find that information out is to sit down and have a conversation. And if it is the truth, it will reveal itself. And so it's best that we do that and be very careful on who we receive information from. And going back to an earlier conversation, if you're in a situation where in a marriage or a relationship where you're not happy and you experience some displeasure, then I urge you to seek counseling services. Marital counseling is very, very, very beneficial to your relationship. It can help you get to the root of the problems and resolve those problems systematically with an array of interventions to help you on the individual basis and to help you on the marital basis, so that your marriage can move in a better direction. And so if you have any questions concerning this subject, we ask that you give us a call. We would be glad to answer them at this time.
All right. We do have one caller on the line. Hold on a minute, okay? Good morning, caller. You're on the line.
Hello?
This lady found out about her husband and went to the hotel where he worked, but she couldn't get in it. That her husband was running around with this woman. They finally got a divorce. People had fed the information into them, told them exactly where he was meeting. So she met at the hotel, but she knew exactly where he was. Mm-hmm. And right now, they've been divorced for years, and she still don't like that woman. Mm-hmm. So if you think your husband is doing something, maybe he'd be a nice enough guy and say, I'm running around with somebody. You go get checked to see do you have anything, because each time you see that lady or that man, it's put you back in the bedroom with them individuals, unless you are a good person, good believing God, and strong. I wouldn't want to know. But if you run around, you can tell me, say, sweetheart, I'm running around and blank, 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 blank. Don't tell me the woman's name unless I go to the doctor and find out I got something, because I will never be happy with them again. Thank you all.
All right. Okay. How would you get over betrayal like that?
Ooh, betrayal is something.
Mm-hmm.
Because betrayal leads to issues with unforgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, we have to look at the fact that it takes two to tango.
Mm-hmm.
Even if infidelity is happening in the marriage, yes, it was one person's decision to be infidelous, but it's two in a marriage. Let's talk about the problems that might have led to that. What's going on? And the way to do that is to do a marital assessment. And, you know, as I said earlier, I do recommend counseling, because what happens is the therapist will sit down and do an assessment with you according to every area, major areas of marriage: sex, finance, child rearing, faith, all of that, to see how you feel about those areas, to see if there's any problems in those areas. And what they do is they use the assessment to get to the root of the problem. Okay, were you not getting what you needed emotionally? or physically from your spouse.
Or could it have been a sexual addiction?
It have been.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, that will be uncovered in the assessment as well.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, then okay, we need to refer you to some individual therapy services to help you work on that. Because see, sexual addiction is rooted in something else. Have you gone through any sexual abuse as a child? See, that takes on a whole other direction.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the cause, we refer that particular spouse to individual therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But once we get to the root of the problem, what can we do to make sure that this does not happen again?
Mm-hmm.
If you are deciding that you want to stay in the marriage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that'll give you some choices
Yes.
and some options. So knowledge is powerful.
Yes,
a lot
it
of
is.
times we make wrong choices and wrong mistakes
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have the right information.
Mm-hmm.
Information, knowledge
Mm-hmm.
is so powerful.
Yes, it is.
It teaches us how to call the right judgments
That's right.
on situations and circumstances.
That's right.
And then, if you know before time, and if you're weak enough to go on into the situation, it'll work out, and you get in there and get your head all beat
Mhm.
up, you wish you
Mhm.
had listened and waited.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. When you go through an infidelity situation, you need help from someone who's totally disconnected from your situation, who can give you an unbiased opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And that therapist can present you with another perspective or another angle for which you can see your problem or your situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if one person does commit the physical act of infidelity, or they may cheat, they had some help in going in that direction
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the times.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to set our pride to the side and say, well, you know what? I did cause some of that
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't there for my spouse in the manner in which I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do? What can we do together to make sure that we are giving each other what we need in this marriage, emotionally, mentally, and physically?
Mm. So admitting to some things
Mhm.
is a form of healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. So you're saying it's never one person. All the fault does not fall
Mm-mm.
on one individual.
No, ma'am. It's never one person's fault 100% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
because it takes two to make the marriage work.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some things that could have gone on for a long period of time that may have led to that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to examine it to see why that happened. What
Mhm.
led to that? What are the events that led to that? Why did those events occur?
And I think about this sometimes that even before individuals get married, they ought to go through a period of deliverance.
Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes from those old relationships,
Mhm.
old sexual acts,
Mhm.
and some if they did that before they got married.
Mhm.
Because sometimes your mind can be somewhere else, even when you're at home.
Yes, ma'am. That's true. And what I've learned too, in working with couples, if you have had many sexual partners before you marry the person that the Lord has ordained for you to be with,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't get delivered from those people in the mental sense and in the spiritual aspect, that person will be in the bedroom. Those people that you were with
Mhm.
will be in the bedroom with you and your spouse.
Mm-hmm. It's called a sexual soul tie.
Mhm.
Your soul is still tied up. And when your soul is not free, you're not free.
You're not free.
And it can bring
Mhm.
hindrances in the marriage.
Yes.
And some of those spirits probably try to call you back
Mm-hmm.
into those other relationships. And
Exactly.
if you're not strong, you might end up going back that way.
It's possible. It's possible. And then, is it fair for your spouse to compete with all of those other people that you've been with?
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you've had these experiences. Your spouse may not be as experienced, and now you're comparing your current spouse to the people you were with before you married them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair? Because you're not allowing them to be who they are
Mm-hmm.
for you.
And sometimes you want them to perform do certain things,
Mm-hmm.
that person might not be comfortable
That's right.
with that. So do you think it's a good thing for mothers to even kind of prepare their daughters
Mm-hmm.
for their spouses
Mm-hmm.
as far as sex and everything?
Yes, ma'am. I believe that because my mother surely did. She prepared me.
Mm-hmm.
My mom taught me how to be a wife growing up. She was teaching me about marriage
Mm-hmm.
and how to conduct myself as a wife growing up. And I thank her for those lessons because those lessons right now have blessed me.
Mm-hmm.
They are still blessing me. So we need to prepare them for that.
That is so true, and I don't think we're getting or seeing enough of that. Even parents shouldn't be ashamed to talk to their daughters about sex. Back
No.
in the day, our parents wouldn't even hardly tell us about menstruation. Your period is going to come on, and all of these things. They were ashamed to talk about it, like it was
Taboo.
taboo. It was dirty or kept under the rug, and all of that thing. Didn't even hardly know where a baby came from, how a baby was conceived, and all of that. So, but now these children go on the internet anywhere. They know a lot more than
A whole lot more than you would think they know.
But things need to be talked about.
Yes, ma'am. They need to be, so we can prepare them for the real world. You know, and give them a good understanding about relationships, what you should expect in a relationship.
Because I believe that's the number one attack is upon relationship, even in the home. Because you know that out of the home, we go out into society. And what we learn at in the home, it affects society. If you have a dysfunctional home, guess what? You're going to carry that dysfunction out into society and affect others.
That's right.
You know?
That's true. Because if we have our own dysfunctions individually, and those dysfunctions aren't resolved, then we connect with other people. Now we have a dysfunctional marriage. Then you go from having a dysfunctional marriage to having issues in the community. It affects everybody. You know, it affects the community and the society as a whole. When we have families who suffer from intense dysfunction.
What about when the incest inside the home? Sometimes sex with brothers and sisters. How does this affect individuals? Sometimes you can look at a person, you wonder why they're dressing like they're dressing, look like their attitude, they're not consistent, they changing so much, or wearing so many different types of hairstyles and clothing, provocative clothing. It's something going on there.
It's something going on in the thought pattern. You know, it could be an indication that this is something has happened to them intimately. And you know, in an earlier conversation we talked about generations of sexual abuse. It becomes part of the family culture. It becomes a way of life. And so until that process is interrupted, it continues.
I remember watching a movie of this brother and sister. Somehow I think the mother had went to a mental institution. They was left at home hiding between themselves. And they ended up living like a husband and wife, even though they was brother and sister, and had a baby.
My Lord.
They
Is
had,
this a true account?
they had it on television.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
so even in the home unit, you need to be mindful of even your children. You know, sometimes when the parents are gone, sometimes the children want to explore. And if there's no one else around, they might practice it on each other.
That's right. And the only way to prevent that is through supervision and teaching them about the appropriateness in certain types of relationships. Teach them the difference between a relationship they will have with a parent versus a relationship they have with a cousin or a sibling or a best friend. Teach them about the different dynamics in relationships. Not only that, teach them about inappropriate touch versus appropriate touch.
And you are so right. And it goes back to that word again, teaching. You got to do a lot of teaching. Some things happen because of the lack of knowledge. We go back to that again. The lack of knowledge. It just kind of ooze on into some things because of feelings. Feeling gets in the way. It can cause a lot of harm. Let's talk about feelings and emotions.
Now, feelings and emotions always start with a thought. Something happens in our environment around us. We have a thought about it. And from that thought, we have a feeling about it. And from the feeling, that leads to a behavior. So you have the thought, the feeling, and then the behavior. And emotions can't really be trusted because they tend to change depending on the changes in our thought patterns based on what has occurred in our environment from 1 second or 1 minute to the next.
And a lot of times that needs to be exposed and brought to the light. Sometimes children will hide it. And I think about Joyce Myers many times. She was sexually abused by her own father, she didn't allow that to keep her down or to keep it hidden. So now she's helping so many other people by exposing that to the light. It's those dark secrets many times that keep a person in bondage. But when you bring them to the light, let me grab this call. An individual can receive some help and healing.
That's right.
Good morning, caller.
Miss Walker, I'm going to be very quick. Don't ever let your friend tell you to seek revenge. I hate to put this out, but myself, seek revenge or let him do anything to you. You go somewhere and do something to him. Don't let them fool you like that. If I had been around some women like Miss Earnestine or Miss Walker, it would have been a blessing for God. When you go out and try to pay a man back, you carry yourself down. You're doing something you don't want to do, and that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. I made that mistake. These things I'm telling you, I didn't get them out of a storybook. I made that mistake, but finally we did get a divorce at the end. But never pay them back. Take it to Jesus and go to some good, smart folks like Miss Ernestine or Miss Walker. Be blessed.
All right.
All right, Miss Brown. But you know, Miss Brown is right. She's right. You cannot, spite work never works.
It does not.
It will always turn in on you because the Lord says, vengeance is mine and I will repay. As for a woman, if you are in a situation where your spouse or your significant has committed infidelity, you don't compete with them in that area. Society will not easily forgive you. You can be labeled as a type of woman, and once that label is put out there, most of the time it will stick.
That's true. And when you try to compete with a man or doing what he's doing, then you brought yourself down to his level.
Yes, ma'am.
And it will cost you later on.
Yes, ma'am.
It will cost.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Robert and I talk about this from time to time. He said, men do things, but women will be looked down on terribly, called names if they try to compete with a man.
That's right. They will be called names, and the only way they can live that name down, they will have to completely out of their community into another community where almost no one knows them. And it's true, because we can look at the woman in the Bible who was caught in adultery. They were about to stone her to death, but they never once asked where was the man she was sleeping with. Never asked about him, because they saw that she was in the wrong, because she was a woman. And even right now in society, women who quote unquote sold their oats are labeled as prostitutes, hookers, and they're given other horrible names. Whores, all of that.
All of that.
When a man can do the same thing, it's unfair, and it's a double standard. And it says in Proverbs, the Lord doesn't even like double standards. But that is the way society, for the most part, will think. And so you cannot be revengeful and try and pay your spouse back for the infidelity. It's not going to work, because now you've sank yourself to their level.
That's true. Especially you go out and try to have sex because he did this, and you conceive a child. Now that's making the situation actually worse.
It sure is.
It's not getting better
at all.
and you're carrying yourself down.
Mm-hmm.
Never. I've learned this, and I'm still learning it somewhat. Never do things out of spite, trying to get somebody else back.
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
Like you said earlier, God say, "Vengeance is mine, and I will
repay.
I will repay." You do it out of spite, you have to keep on sometimes
Mm-hmm.
reaping the repercussions
Yes, ma'am.
behind spite.
That's right.
You got to put in the hands of the Lord. Handle them.
Mm-hmm.
Now He can handle them better
Yes,
than we
he
can. I remember listening to a lady problem with a situation with a person. She said, "I'm going to put you in the hands of the Lord. I am going to put you
Yes.
in the hands of the Lord." Good morning, beautiful ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
Good morning to you all. You all have a comment or a question? Hey, put it on Facebook. Well, type it on this particular conversation and we'll talk about it. Right. So when you put in the hands of the Lord, hey, you're in the best hands.
That's right. That's right. He will fight your battle for you.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a responsibility to do what is right in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
We have a responsibility to do what is right.
Mm-hmm. Hold yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
Hold your standard up.
Yeah.
Don't lower yourself or start changing your personality and character
Mm-hmm.
because this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
You can lose yourself trying to fight against somebody else.
That's right.
You become a total different person
Mm-hmm.
than the original person you started out to be, a person of honor and integrity. You
Mm-hmm.
start lowering your standards sometimes because of the conflict.
Yes, ma'am.
We have to know how to deal with conflict.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. It's true. Mm-hmm. And you know, I've learned. I had a very recent situation that happened to me. A person that, I will say this, told a vicious lie on me. And as hard as it was, I had to restrain my flesh to keep from trying to defend myself. And I kept hearing the Lord said, He kept saying, be quiet. Don't say anything. Do anything. I will fight that battle.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know, I'm glad I listened to him. Because he chastised that individual for what they had done to me.
Mm-hmm.
If I had went after that individual on my own, it would have created a complete mess and would have caused some other problems down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad I listened to what the Lord said and I allowed Him to fight that battle. And He chastised them severely for what they had done.
And you're so right. You're so right. And we can lose a lot of time trying to get back at somebody else. The Lord can handle it better than you can, especially when you're innocent.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't done anything to cause this. That's what the Bible also says, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm.
That's right.
You got to be careful who you put your mouth on and tell lies about. That stuff will come back and backfire on you.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And then I believe as Christians, as saints, the punishment for us is worse because we know better.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we know what God's word says about that, about mistreating our neighbor, talking too much, saying ugly stuff about one another, running each other down. He said, love thy neighbor as thyself. Because I believe the consequence is much harsher because we know better.
Right. If we could keep this little tongue in our mouth, it's called the pink tornado.
Oh, it's set on the fires of hell itself.
I tell you. And a lot of times it's better to be quiet than to just try to put our 2 cents worth in there. We gotta say something. We don't have to always say something. You know, even in a argument between a husband and wife, one got to have the last word. Well, I don't have to have the last word.
That's right.
It's okay for you to have the last word.
That's right.
But God's word is one really that has the last word.
That's true. That's true.
Because sometimes you feel like if you had the last word, then you won. What did you actually win?
Right. What did you win? is the need to prove yourself being right worth you ruining the relationship?
Mm-hmm.
Is it necessary for you to be right at the risk of the relationship?
Mm-hmm. Now that's what you call pride.
Yes.
When pride come in there, the individual feel like they're right all the time. You got some people feel like they're right all the time. Sometimes I might say the wrong thing. I gotta know how to repent and apologize. That was wrong. I didn't even say that in the right tone. You know?
That's right.
We're not perfect, but we serve the perfect one.
That's right.
But callers, if you desire to call in, we got a few more minutes. We got about maybe 12 or so minutes. 662-328-9227 or 662-328-1052. And if you all have a comment on Facebook, go ahead and post your comment or your question. Miss Walker will certainly address the question. We got a lot going on. It needs to be a lot more teaching and exposure to the truth so that people can get help. You know, sometimes people are doing things because they just don't know, or this is what happened to them. They're just going on doing it, repeating it on down the line, and it starts a generational curse. And like you said earlier, that cycle needs to be broken.
Yes, ma'am. It's true. And the only way to break that is to be presented with some new information, a new way of living, being presented with a new perspective.
And change. It's change. It's change. Is it easy to change?
It's not, because with change comes a portion of pain. There's going to be some growing pains when you're trying to change. You're going to be uncomfortable initially, but it's necessary because it's the pain in it that's going to push you to change and do better.
That is real good. That is real good. Let me grab this call here. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning to you and your listeners and all. It goes back to what has been said about 4,000 times. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he won't depart from it.
Yes, sir.
And we should always keep in mind, especially when we have children, we should teach them in the way that they should go, not the way that the world is doing, or way Tom and Jerry and all of them are doing, but the way that God say do it. And you cannot go wrong in that.
You're right.
Right.
And that's why we got to come from behind the four walls and get that information out there to the people. Somebody shared it with us one day, and we want to share it with others.
Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. Got a good program. Thank you.
All right, thank you for calling. And you're right. We got to do I think we got to do a better job of trying to help reach individuals that need biblical teaching or teaching about their situations, how to come out and have a better life. You know, some people are crying out.
Yes.
Especially when a child has been traumatized through sexual activity that, you know, they're crying out. And sometimes they won't tell anybody.
Yes, ma'am, they won't, because of trying to keep from destroying the image of the family, trying to not bear shame and embarrassment, worrying about what others are going to think about them and worrying about what others are going to say. And if that is a concern, that is what holds a person in that bondage. But one way to come out of that bondage is exposure. Expose it for what it is, so that you can deal with it, because if you expose it, it doesn't have any power over you.
So therefore we need to be aware of our surrounding and what's in our surrounding. You know, parents, be watchful even in your own home. Make sure, actually, children question from time to time. You know, like you was talking about good touch and bad touch. Ask them from time to time, or did anybody on the outside touch you in the wrong manner? What happens when children start having sex at an early age?
When children start to engage in sexual intercourse at an earlier age, what happens is it arrests their emotional and cognitive development, because that particular desire. A child cannot understand. They don't have the cognitive and the emotional capacity to understand the depth of that particular activity.
Oh,
and it can cause some damage,
my
severe emotional damage.
Good morning, caller.
This question is to Miss Walker. Okay, a relative of mine, I know they're listening on the phone. I'm not going to call her name. 9 years old. Stepdad probably was about 35. Telling the mother that she didn't want to stay with them, and she didn't know that the man was sexually doing whatever to the little girl that he wasn't supposed to be. And she was regularly telling him, crying, they want to stay with the man. And go on, stay here. I got to do this. I got to go to work. And the man messed with him. She was 9 years old. She became pregnant by that man, was 9 or 10 years old. But that mother had a right to listen and to know something was going on. The reason that girl was so horrified of staying there with the man. This is a true story, as I tell you all. And she became pregnant, I think, at the age of 9. I don't know if she lost the baby, if they adopted, or what they did with it. Be blessed again, Miss Walker.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
That's a sad story.
It is, but it's happening. They had, I remember about 20 years ago, they had several cases over the Mississippi Delta where the 9-year-old had a baby, and the grandmother was 20 years old. The grandmother to the 9-year-old's baby was 20 years old. The great-grandmother was 36, and the great-great-grandmother was 45.
My goodness.
So that means the great-grandmother was my age at the time, the age I am now.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
Let me grab this call. They hung up. But, you know, a lot of that is going on. And the child actually missed her childhood.
She did.
She really didn't have a childhood. And it's sad when a child does not have a childhood because of somebody else messing with them. That's why when we see things like this, are we held accountable if we don't report it?
Yes, ma'am. We are held accountable by the law in the state of Mississippi. If you know a child is being sexually abused and it is found out that you know it, you could be litigated as well, sanctioned and jailed yourself if you know it, because we have mandated reporters in the state of Mississippi. That's any licensed medical professional. That includes counselors, therapists, doctors, nurse practitioners, school counselors, teachers, anybody, police officers, anybody that works in a social services field is a mandated reporter. Even laypersons. If you know a child is in harm's way and it is found out that you know it and you didn't call the authorities, you could be held liable for that.
So it's no time to say, I don't want to get involved, or shut your eyes like you don't see nothing.
That's right.
You can tell it and don't even give your name or whatever, but report it.
Yes, ma'am.
At least report it.
Yes, ma'am. You can call the Mississippi Department of Human Services and do anonymous reporting.
So, radio listeners, if you suspect something like that going on, don't just shut your eyes. Somebody's being hurt. Somebody's being perpetrated upon, and sometimes they can come back even into your own neighborhood and affect you.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
But we started talking about the different learning, and all of these things come sometimes from a lack of learning. A lack of learning. Like my cousin would say, he spent 27 years in prison. He went in there when he was 27 years old, and they tested his IQ, which said it was about 69, classified him with learning disabilities. But while he was there, he got smart, he started reading, came out with 2 college degrees.
Wow.
In prison.
In prison.
So he was given, I think it was a life sentence, but somehow the Lord released him after 27 years. And he's a better person now. He got his head on straight now.
Praise the Lord. That's good. That's good. Is he working in his field of study?
Right now he's in a halfway house.
Okay.
Transitioning back for society because he's been behind prison bars so long that they want him to make it once he get out.
Yes.
Things have changed so much, like the cell phones and all of those different things. So he's learning about the new world. It's not like it was when he went in there 27 years ago.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I'm glad he has a team working on his behalf, because see, a lot of that, just that alone, not being acclimated to this, to society, the new technology in this new world, it can threaten to send him back into the penal system. And so we have to help people to come out of that institutionalized mindset so that they can make it in this world.
Because I have known some individuals, this is a true story, that have did things to go back. They couldn't make it. So back there, at least they had 3 meals. They didn't have to pay taxes and all of that. Now, what type of mindset would want to be locked up?
They're comfortable with being told what to do every second of the day. And you know something? I've seen that same syndrome in individuals who've been in the military as well for many, many years. Because from the time they wake up to almost the time that they go to bed at night, they have their schedules made out, and they're being told what to do by someone in some capacity all day long. And so that's why when they come out of the military, that transition back into civilian life is a little bit difficult. Because now everything you do is solely by your own wits, by your own discretion. And so that transition can be a little bit difficult. So I can understand why it would be the same for individuals who have been incarcerated for many years.
And with that, it's kind of like you don't know who you are. You don't know your purpose. You don't have something greater than what you have now.
That's right.
You have to know your purpose and transition
Yes, ma'am.
from one stage of life to the next one.
Yes, ma'am.
Some people are afraid of or have fear of the next phase of life. They'd rather stay stuck.
That's right.
All right, we've been talking about a lot today. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
But some of these things, many of these things need to be talked about, that we can get better learning, how to deal with situations better. You were talking about the different learning styles. That was great information.
Thank you.
Great information. We appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. I always enjoy you.
And we were supposed to talk about getting over a broken heart.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess we're going to have to pick that up on next time.
Yes, ma'am. We can do that. We can do that.
Because my pastor was saying this at the funeral on Saturday, that everybody have at some point experienced a broken heart.
Yes.
Nobody will escape that.
Nobody. And some of us several times.
And that can turn inward if you don't deal with it.
That's right. That's right. It can turn into depression. It can go from being uncomplicated bereavement to full-blown clinical depression if it is not resolved.
All right, it's been wonderful. We got to get out of here. We appreciate you, and you have a great rest of the week.
All right. See you soon. Be blessed.
All right, Facebook family. We appreciate you all. You all have a great day. We thank you for being a part of what we do. And don't be afraid to post those comments and questions. No question is a wrong question. So you all have a great day as well, and a great week. Hopefully you'll tune in again on tomorrow. Until next time, God bless.
See you soon.